The DMV will suspend your registration when your policy is canceled. Now, this is a very aggressive tool that you could use within the introduction or the greeting process, when you're offering information, and definitely when you're closing the appointment. Now, it's very important for you to educate the client on the process of how it works and why the DMV will suspend the registration and how long does it take. And you're also going to plant a seed as far as the fear of them being in that process by asking them if they received the letter. And if they haven't, you're going to tell them it's already in the process. The DMV already submitted the information. Most likely, you'll be getting that anytime soon. So when the policy is canceled, you have to remember the DMV gives them sufficient enough time. You're not going to give them all the details of the time, but you're going to use this as an urgency tool to persuade the client to actually make an appointment immediately. So let's talk about the process that the DMV takes. As soon as the policy expires or if it cancels, the DMV will be notified, within some time. Now, it takes about 30 days, maybe 60 days. The DMV will submit the process of the registration being canceled, and the letter is submitted to the client. Now, within that time of them receiving a letter, they still have some time and opportunity to actually resolve it by getting insurance, and then that suspension request will be eliminated. Now, the customers don't really understand exactly how that works, so you have to educate them. The second process is being pulled over or simply having a police officer run their plates. Immediately, they're going to have access to that information that the registration, it's either in the process of suspension or it's already suspended. But definitely by running the plates, they're going to determine that there's no insurance. But if the registration is in the process of suspension or it's already suspended, it makes it even worse, and it makes it easier for a police officer to determine that there's some sort of issues with their insurance, and they're going to get pulled over, and of course they're going to eventually receive a ticket. So when you call customers, you need to educate them of that process. Now, your goal is to use that tool and to use it in a way where you could actually set up an appointment and close the appointment for them to show up today. Because as of now, you're going to tell them, look, it seems like that information is not on my system. You're going to tell them that we have access at least to determine if that suspension has already been activated. And since it's not, your goal is to help them immediately by setting up an appointment. Number 3, you're going to plant the seed by asking them, have you received a letter from the DMV? They're going to tell you, what do you mean a letter? Yes, a letter of suspension. And then you're going to educate them. They're going to most likely tell you, no, I have not received a letter. So you're going to use that in a way of closing the appointment for today. You're going to tell them, if you haven't received it, you're lucky. I actually just spoke to a client and they received it a couple of days ago. So their registration is in the process of suspension. Or you could tell them, I spoke to a customer a couple of days. It took 30 days for them to actually receive that letter and for that suspension to be activated. So it's going to happen soon. If it hasn't happened, then that should motivate you to come down to the office today, because if not, it's going to happen eventually. And it's going to happen within the next couple of days, within the next couple of weeks. Why wait until that process has been activated when you could eliminate it and take care of it today? So those are the 3 steps of introducing the DMV suspending the registration tool. Number 1, you're going to educate them. You're going to share the process of how it works, that if the policy expires or it cancels, usually the DMV within 15 days, within 30 days, they're gonna submit the request to suspend the registration, and they're gonna mail a letter, and then obviously they may have a couple of days to fix it, and then the suspension will be activated. Now that's easy. Number 2, it's easy for a police officer to actually run the information and determine that the registration is in the process of suspension or it's already been suspended, and that's going to help them have a reason to pull them over. And number three, you're going to plant the seed of the suspension taking effect within the next couple of days by asking them, have you received the letter? They're going to tell you, no, I have not received the letter. So you're going to use that as a motivation for them to actually set up an appointment, and you're going to add urgency and value to your closing tools to convince them on showing up as soon as possible to eliminate that suspension, because technically that's just another reason for them to get pulled over. So use these three steps when introducing the suspension of the registration. Now I'll give you an example. Jonathan, just so you can know, my goal is to help you. Now let me just share something with you. Now first of all, let me ask you a quick question. Have you received a letter from the DMV by any chance? They're going to say, what do you mean? Yes, a letter from the DMV. Technically a notification of suspension. Well, let me just share with you. As soon as your policy is canceled, or if it expires, which technically means that there's no coverage, but in your case, since your policy is canceled, the insurance company is going to submit an electronic notification to the DMV within maybe a couple, 24, 48 hours of the cancellation. As soon as the DMV receives that notification, they're gonna start the process of suspension of your registration. See, if you don't have insurance, the DMV will suspend the registration. See, everything is connected now. So that's a way of forcing us, all of us, making it an obligation for us to have insurance. Now, if the DMV submits that request for the suspension of your registration, then they're going to mail you a notification. They're going to mail you a letter, and that letter is going to give you maybe a couple of days, a week or two to resolve the matter. If not, that suspension will be activated. So that letter, usually it could take anywhere from a week to 2 weeks. So have you received it? They're going to say, no, I haven't received it. Then perfect. Then John, just so you can know, this is the best time for you to actually make an appointment with me to take care of the situation. Now, let me tell you how a police officer is going to use this information against you. Now, simply by running the plates, they're going to determine if the registration is active. They're going to determine if the registration is suspended, if it's expired, and also if you have insurance. Now, even if your registration is not suspended, but it's in the process of suspension, they're still going to pull you over because of this. And now, not only are you going to get a ticket for no insurance, you know, that's just another reason for them to pull you over and give you additional tickets for making other mistakes that possibly you didn't even make. You know how that works. So the great thing is that since nothing has happened today, I want to motivate you, and I would encourage you to set up an appointment today so we could actually take care of the situation. Now, since your registration has not been suspended, you haven't received that letter, then that gives us all the indications that it's not suspended yet, but it will be suspended soon. So let's don't wait until you actually receive the letter, because they may give you a couple of days, and within those days, then you're looking at other situations. So what do you say? Let's set up an appointment today. Matter of fact, you have not received that letter. That's great. That's great news. Let's set up an appointment so you can actually come down to the office. Let's take care of the situation before your registration is suspended. Use this tool. This tool, it plants the fear of them getting pulled over for no reason. Technically, for not having insurance, for the registration being suspended. Now, it is a fact. The DMV will notify them, will submit a letter, and then they'll give them a certain amount of days. Now, the details of the process are not important. What you're going to use is you're going to use the urgency of them showing up. You're going to introduce a fear that it could only take a couple days for them to get their registration suspended, and if the registration is submitted submitted for the DMV to suspend it, then they will receive a letter. That letter will notify them of how many days, and it could be a couple of days. So why wait until they're in that situation when they can take care of the situation today? So this is a tool that you use within the greeting. Matter of fact, in the beginning, you could just simply ask them, how are you? Did you know that your payment is late? Just out of curiosity, have you received a letter from the DMV, a notification of suspension? So you're going to start from the beginning with introducing this concept, introducing knowledge, giving them a reason why they should show up. Use this tool. It's very useful.